In 2022, an average of 17,000 people a week entered into homelessness systems across the country for the first time. And in 2023, total homelessness increased by 12%. So joining us to explain are Ann Oliva, CEO of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and Donald Whitehead, Executive Director of the National Coalition for the Homeless. Thank you to both of you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Now, Ann, let's start with you. What are some of the factors driving this crisis in America?
Yeah, I think it's important to start with the notion that I think that we all agree that when everybody in a community has a safe and stable place to live, that community is stronger. And that's why we've been really concerned about this 12% increase in homelessness that we saw in 2023. And that increase is primarily driven by three factors. The first is the affordable housing crisis. Rents have skyrocketed nationwide, and the number of affordable units that are available doesn't meet the need in any state across the country. That means that people are paying more and more of their income towards rent. The second factor is that our social safety net is also not meeting the need. People are slipping through the cracks of that social safety net and are entering the homeless system, as you mentioned, for the first time in many cases. And the third factor over the last couple of years that we've been really tracking is the end of the pandemic era protections, like the eviction moratorium and assistance to pay rent. So those things ended just as we saw rents begin to skyrocket nationwide. And those three things together have really contributed to that increase that we saw in 2023.
And Donald, what do the homeless numbers look like for our state?
Sure, and we do an annual count on in January. So any given night in Kentucky, there's about 4,766 people that we captured in that count. That represents a 19.6% increase in the number for the previous year. And so that number actually exceeds the number nationally. We mentioned that there's a 12% increase nationally. In Kentucky, that number is 19.6%. And one of the drivers of that number, perhaps the biggest driver, is the lack of affordable housing units. In Kentucky, that number is 28,000. There's 28,000 less units than needed for people in the community. And we know that in a community, when we provide adequate housing, it's a safer and stronger community.
Now, some states are trying to outlaw being homeless. And why do you say that this is the wrong approach?
Because we actually know that homelessness is solvable. And we know that the combination of safe and affordable housing with the services that people need to maintain that housing is what works. We used that combination when we were able to cut homelessness among veterans by more than half over a handful of years. And that's the evidence that tells us that this approach works. We also know that criminalization, which means that people are being ticketed or fined or arrested for camping in public or for existing in public spaces when they have nowhere else to go, is actually counterproductive. And what I mean by that is that it harms it doesn't end homelessness first, and it also harms people experiencing homelessness, because once you have an arrest on your record, it makes it harder to get a lease, it makes it harder to get a job. And it also, as encampments get closed and people get pushed out of their service areas, it makes it harder for service providers to actually find and serve people and get them out of homelessness. And I think one of the most important things about this effort towards criminalization is that in many states, it's actually being pushed by out-of-state lobbyists who have an agenda and don't know very, very much about homelessness and the factors that lead to homelessness in the state that they're working in. So when we talk to elected officials, we really encourage them to talk to the real experts on homelessness. And that is people in your community, people in Kentucky who provide services to people who are experiencing homelessness and who have experienced homelessness themselves.
And where do we go for more information?
That's a great question. And we can start by saying, you can go to our website to get more information and to get the tools that you need and the information that you need to talk to your elected officials. That website is endhomelessness.org/criminalization.
Thank you to both of you for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you for having us.
Mhm.